I think everybody remembers when something significant in history happens. My dad always talks about where he was when JFK was shot, and my grandmother talks about where she was when Pearl Harbor was attacked as well. So I think I definitely will probably share with my son where I was when 9/11 happened.
I was in college going to my undergrad school, and every morning I'd get up and I'd have the TV on, the news or something on in terms of electronics, either radio or the television.
But this was the first day I was supposed to come and teach kids, and I was actually teaching elementary music at the time. So I got up and I was already nervous. I hadn't slept much the night before, had the first day jitters, and I got up and my husband told me, you need to come and watch the news, something has happened. And on that day, my father was flying out to visit us in California. He was flying out from Boston, from Logan Airport.
I was jogging on my little treadmill, and I could see the television at the same time, and in the corner of my eye, I noticed a plane hit one of the Twin Towers, and I thought,
down to Mr. Emai came in about 10 after or so, 5 after 6, and said, "Did you hear what happened?" And I said, "Yeah, a little airplane fell onto the towers." He goes, "No."
At that point, we thought it was just an accident, and about 13 minutes after that...
Again, all of a sudden, while I was watching it, the second plane hit, and it was a surprise to the announcers, and because it was totally live. And I think most people at that time were asleep when it was happening, at least on the West Coast.
But I went back to my classroom and I flipped on the TV to one of the news channels, and I remember watching it and seeing one of the Trade Center buildings burning, and then shortly after I started watching it, the second airplane went into the other building, and then you kind of knew it wasn't an accident.
You could hear the frantic reactions of everybody watching, and it was surreal. It was one of those things that it felt like it was happening to somebody else, and it was scary. And I realized quickly that the day still had to go on. And so I was teaching 4th grade at that time, and I knew that I had to go to school and act like it was a normal day, even though we all knew it wasn't a normal day.
First thought was about all those thousands of people that worked inside the towers, and I was hoping that they would make it out, but somehow I knew that it wouldn't happen, that there would be a lot of people who would die because of this.
That it was like the world stopped, and you knew there was a lot of innocent people in there. You knew the business in New York had already started, and it was like, you can't do that to us.
And then I heard that a plane hit the Pentagon. At this point, I was beyond stressed. I called my husband and I said, "Where are those F-15 fighters? They should have been in the air. I just don't understand what's going on here."
I watched the 3 planes hit the World Trade Center, 2 at the World Trade Center and 1 at the Pentagon. And I knew that my father was possibly on one of those planes. I didn't know what flights these were. Nobody knew for a long time.
There were other teams that were called in, being that we were right outside of downtown Los Angeles. We didn't know if we were the next city that was going to be hit.
There was talk about one of the planes going to Los Angeles, and so there was a lot of talk of something happening around here.
The thing that really affected me working in a law enforcement agency, that it was the biggest assistant call for their officers, and there was no way to respond. There was no way to jump in your patrol car and go to the scene.
So a lot of the kids were scared and the teachers were scared, but we couldn't let any of the kids see that, because we had to treat it like it was a normal day for their sake.
A few hours later, maybe 3 or 4 hours later, I got a call from my husband, and he told me that my father was not on that flight, that he was okay, and that the flights were United and American flights that had crashed into the World Trade Center. So I was really relieved, but of course we still didn't know where my father was. He was somewhere in the air, and we didn't know if maybe that plane was going to go down too. But anyway, we knew he wasn't on the first 3 planes that went down.
I think, why would anybody do something like that? Why would somebody want to, hurt all those innocent people? And I just remember thinking that I'd never experienced anything like that, and that the world was going to change, that everything was going to be different.
Yeah, we know that terrorism happens all over the world, but we've been so isolated from it. And when you actually see something like that, you stop. I remember one other time, and that's when John Kennedy died. I remember what I was doing. But this was just so real, and the damage was so severe, and you just didn't feel like it was like somebody just hit you really hard with a big 2x4.
You know, you just had this feeling that you weren't as safe as you were 6 hours earlier.
And of course, they had brought down all the airplanes all over the country. And for the next few days, the sky was totally clean. There were no planes at all, not even small planes anywhere.
And what had happened was that his plane was in flight during the attacks, and the pilots had been contacted, and his flight, which was again a Delta flight out of Logan at the same time as the other planes, had been transferred into Cincinnati, Ohio. And they were taken to Cincinnati. They knew nothing, none of the passengers knew nothing about what was happening. They were not shown the news. The FBI showed up. They were taken to a hotel. They were secluded. They were all questioned. And for 2 days they had to stay there and be questioned before they could be released.
For me, just being able to take a step back and thinking about how we spend each day and spending time with our loved ones and our friends and family, and being able to tell them, hey, I love you no matter what, every time when you walk away. I think just being able to embrace each day as if it's your last, and appreciate all the things that we have. So I know that that has been one thing that I've taken away from 9/11. You know, just to really embrace those that you care about and live each day to its fullest.
My father came out. He reached us a few days later, and he was okay. But one thing that he told us that was very, I guess, very moving, was that a few days before he had actually been booked on one of those flights, on one of the United flights, and he had changed his reservation because he didn't want to get in at the time it arrived at Ontario Airport. So he had actually changed his flight to the Delta flight, and his life had been spared.